Welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast. Here to talk all things hockey are your hosts, Brad Crisco, Ryan Hanna, and Evan Lobsinger.
I have an exercise I want us to do. Everyone? Not an actual exercise because I'm bad at those.
I was going to say, no, you don't. Don't scare us like that.
I want everyone to close their eyes, and we're going to travel back to February 25th. It's God. Sunday evening. The Red Wings are playing in Chicago, and it is overtime. Patrick Kane has a breakaway, seals the win. It's Chris Chelios' retirement night. Patrick Kane's first time back in Chicago. The Red Wings are making the playoffs. Now open your eyes. We're in April. The season is over. Where are we at?
All I can think of is a line from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, to quote the late, great Andre Braugher. Pain.
I should have known, Evan, when you wanted to open an episode for probably the first time in 2 calendar years,
at least,
that it would be gutting like that. But yeah.
Got to remember the good times with the bad.
Every possible emotion on the scale, the spectrum that Red Wings fans could have possibly felt this year, we have felt. Like that whole race, like at the end of the game last night when we knew what the result was, like I felt sick to my stomach. Like I felt like my heart was throwing up. But also it was equal parts like, what did we just go through? Like as if we had just been through this weird fever dream. It honestly felt like, you know, in a dream when you're trying to run and you're not moving, or if you try to throw a punch and it's just like throwing pillows. That's what the whole wild card race was.
You ever see that contraption that was designed only in theory about the roller coaster for euthanasia?
Yeah.
Where it just goes in loops and then you die. That was the feeling I had after last night's game.
Yeah, but we all survived. Folks, the Detroit Red Wings won their last 2 games of the season and came up short in the most brutal way possible. We went from, as Evan mentioned, Brad and I talking about how this team looked like they were genuinely going to do it, to Detroit missed the playoffs, not even by a point. They actually tied on points with the team that made it, but they
had more wins too.
They missed out on a regulation wins tiebreaker, ended on 91 points. So close. But ultimately, it's another season without the postseason. This one feels different. Before we jump into the episode, I just want to acknowledge this ending of the season feels way, way different. Like the stakes were higher. Like you have more to hope for. Like they have more that they lost this year. Like there's more disappointment, but potentially more future joy. Like the light at the end of the tunnel has never been bigger. But also, I don't think the hurt has ever been this strong, you know, in this acute of a moment for Red Wings fans. Like this is just, every feeling is amplified to 10 right now.
You know how I knew it was bad? All of my friends and coworkers were very nice to me today.
Yeah. I got a lot of messages like, hey man, I'm sorry about the Red Wings. I'm like, I didn't even know you knew anything about that sport. Yeah, there was, when even like the Leafs fan friends are reaching out to you with sympathy, or even the Sens fan friends are reaching out to you with sympathy, that's when you know it was a rough one. Welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast, folks. Our first episode of the Detroit Red Wings offseason this year. Here to talk to you about all things Detroit Red Wings hockey, the world of the NHL, and what the hell just happened. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan Hanna.
I'm Brad Crisco.
And I'm Evan.
On this episode of the Winged Wheel Podcast, we're going to be talking to you about how the Red Wings didn't make the playoffs, the final standings, and more. And then we're going to double back and recap the 2 games they played since last episode, the home and home against Montreal, which was, after this entire season, this is insane to say, but the 2 craziest games possible, all context considered. And, you know, the storylines coming out of those games. We're going to be talking about the Philadelphia situations that resulted in Detroit not making the playoffs, what ultimately lost it for the Red Wings, and what's coming up in terms of our content and in terms of the Red Wings, because their offseason is just starting, but a lot has to happen. We're then going to be, you know, speculating, not that anyone loves to do it, but speculating about Patrick Kane and his future, and then also giving updates on future Red Wings. Shai Buium and his ELC, Simon Edvinsson and others being sent down to Grand Rapids, and what's up next for Grand Rapids, which should be the focus for Red Wings fans if they want to continue focusing on hockey. We'll then give you a quick little bit on the draft lottery and where Detroit factors into that, but not too long because I don't want Brad to stab me today. And then we're going to be going into the NHL playoff preview. We're going to be looking at each series and talking, maybe making some predictions, some other NHL news, and more. Before all that, I want to let you know that this podcast is primarily supported by our Patreon supporters, patreon.com/wingedwheelpodcast. If you want to support the show and join the so-called Dub Club, you get access to really great benefits like automatically being entered into all of our giveaways. For example, we gave away 2 tickets to every Red Wings home game this past season, the vast majority going directly to our Patreon supporters. You also get access to our Patreon exclusive Discord. It's a fantastic community, and sometimes we do things like for that last game, we did a live stream hangout just for our patrons. Also, you get access to all of our bonus overtime Patreon exclusive episodes, which record and post right after these main ones. So again, patreon.com/wingedwheelpodcast if you want to join the Dub Club and really support the show. Walk us through your feelings when the Red Wings ultimately didn't make it. We'll go through the details of how it happened when we get to that game, but when the dust settled and, Patrick Kane scored that shootout goal to win it, but you knew by that point the Red Wings weren't in, what went through your mind and hearts?
The thing is, it has to be talked about in context of the game because the absolute overlap with Perron tying the game with 3 seconds left when I think everybody, when we were waiting for that faceoff with 7 seconds left, assumed that was it. We were done. And the euphoria when he tied it, obviously everybody was on the live stream, so I was sitting on the couch watching it with my kids. Hank and Mika were with me, and Perron scored that goal, and we're all losing our minds and going absolutely nuts. Which underrated moment from that moment was Evan's stream of the game was 45 seconds behind everybody else's.
Yeah, Mel told me.
I had to mute everyone. I was like, I'm going 0 dark 30. I'll see you at the end of the game. I'll talk then.
And so we all took our 30 seconds of losing our mind and then we all froze and waited for Evan's reaction.
Oh, that's amazing.
It was quality content. And then about 10 seconds after that, we heard Washington had scored the empty netter to go ahead, and just the absolute deflation and heartbreak. And there's still 2 minutes left in that game, and you're like, maybe, and Detroit still has to win it. And then we're watching overtime and we're praying for a Philly comeback. And it was this profound feeling of hopelessness because I had actually a ton of confidence Detroit was going to finish that game off.
Mm-hmm.
I had zero confidence Philly was going to tie that game.
I felt the exact same.
Yeah.
I don't share this out online because no one wants to, you don't want to put anything out into the world, make a prediction, then all of a sudden it comes true. Looking at you, Brad. But I said to Gina Trotman from TV20, I said, you know what's going to happen today, right? Detroit's going to win and Washington's going to win. And she's like, oh, yeah, absolutely. Everyone I talked to before was 100% that's what's going to happen. And despite the fact that you expected that, it's still the way the wind was taken out of the sails. We were watching, because I joined TV20 again. Thank you again to them for making the Winged Wheel podcast part of their TV broadcasts. So we were up on this balcony, for the pre and post game. And then we watched the game from up there. There's 100 screens in Hockeytown Cafe. Each one of them was on a different delay, and the audio playing over the speakers was on a different delay than those videos. And then I had the earpiece in, which went into the TV20 studio set, and they had the Bally feed coming in. So I heard that, and that was ahead of everything else. So then I heard Ken call the Perron goal, and I just started saying, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, repeatedly. And Gina was like, what? And I just pointed at the TV, and someone downstairs saw me up there pointing at the TV, and his hands on his face in shock. He's like, no. And then Perron scored, and everyone went ballistic. There weren't that many people in there, but it sounded like there was 1,000 people in that room. And then the disparity, or just the contrast between that and a minute later when they found out that Philly had blown it, it's all sound and air had been sucked out of the universe.
Yeah, it was very strange. I almost didn't know how to feel because it's the Red Wings did what they had to do.
Yeah. Careful saying that because people get very mad. They did what they had to do over those 2 games.
Yeah. Correct. Yes. Did they beat Pittsburgh or Washington last week? No. And we'll obviously get to that when we take a holistic view of the month, the season that was. But yeah, last night it's like, I'll just say the past 2 games, maybe the 2 most exciting games of the season with everything on the line. The Red Wings were able to pull through. Lucas Raymond plays hero once again. So you're super excited and you're thrilled. You're on such a high, but on the other side, Red Wings aren't making the playoffs. You watch Philly basically fizzle away and not able to help the Red Wings out. It was a very divided way to feel last night.
I do want to clarify one thing you said there. Those were the 2 most exciting Red Wings games in a decade.
Mm-hmm.
In the history of this podcast, we have never covered games like that with that sort of intensity, crazy highs, crazy lows, so much meaning on the back of them. Because even one of the 2 playoff years that we got to cover as a podcast, I still remember the last day of that season where all the Red Wings had to do was win in New York, and they were in, and they played an awful game, lost, but got lucky because Ottawa blew out Boston or somebody that day unexpectedly to
they
get
fell
in the
backwards
playoffs.
into it.
Yeah, they tripped into the playoffs. And then you counter this with, yes, we will get into everything they screwed up to be in this position, but you beat Toronto in overtime. The crazy comeback against Montreal. I'm aware they should have never been down 4-1 to Montreal, but one hell of a comeback. And then that roller coaster against Montreal where 7 seconds left, face off. Like, how often do teams score in that? 1 in 100?
Oh,
1 in 200? More? And
you were like, there's no way Detroit's going to do it again, right?
Yeah. Like, after the last 2 games, you're like, they have worn out their goodwill. And somehow, it was absolutely nuts. That 30 seconds from when Perron scored till we found out it didn't matter was the highest high any of us have had since we started doing this podcast.
You're right in that it was the moments and the meaning. You could have had one or the other and we would still have been talking with just as much intensity this episode, but it was both the context of the moment and how it all played out. It was ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous. The Red Wings are out. The final standings, they have 91 points to the Washington Capitals, 91 points. So Detroit loses on regulation wins, which is the first tiebreaker. Washington has 32. Detroit has 27. Detroit just didn't have any of the regulation win tiebreaker over any of the teams who were in the mix, really. Pittsburgh, Philly, they both had them too. And the Islanders ended up with one more than Detroit. So that is what it is. I think there's a broader conversation to be had about, Detroit has 41 wins to Washington's 40. That kind of thing happens every year. The 3-2-1 point system versus what they have now versus just straight win-loss. I'm sure we're going to do that at some point, but that's it. Detroit ends with 91 points. 91 is a low number for the playoffs. It could have been 89 too. Like this was we used to call the year where it was 94, extremely low. This is a whole new standard. I just can't imagine it shaking out like this very often, if at all, again, anytime soon.
I think we're only 2 years removed from the benchmark for playoffs being 98.
Yeah, it was
1 year.
It was like you had to be a 100-point team to make it. So it's just one of those quirky years. Whichever way you want to cut it, Detroit just missed it. So a lot of people are looking at 1 point either direction, but Detroit's 91 points is going to be at least one ahead of the Pittsburgh Penguins. They're at 88 before playing their last game. They could finish at 90, but regardless, they finished ahead of them, and the Flyers finished at 87. And then the Islanders secured that third Metro Division seed. Which one of these doesn't belong? The New York Rangers, President Trophy winner, 114 points. The Carolina Hurricanes, maybe a Stanley Cup favorite, 111 points. The New York Islanders, 92 points after 81 games. Could be 94.
The Rangers have 23 more points than the Washington Capitals.
The Islanders have 43 losses.
Bizarro year, man. Bizarro year. So that's where the Red Wings finished, the first team on the cusp. I remember when we were doing our pre-season Red Wings preview. Again, I'm going to take my victory lap that I joked about. I should have been more confident in myself. I went back and listened, and I was like, I know I'm going to be the most wrong out of us, and I called them a 91-point team. But we said, a really good outcome for Detroit is that they are, if it's not the playoffs, is that we think that they can be one of those teams that's just outside the cusp. They were the team that's just outside the cusp, and their arm, leg, and half of their body was through the door when it got slammed shut. And that's what my body feels like today after that emotional loss. Let's dial it back. Let's go to the Monday game where Detroit was in Hockeytown, the final Red Wings home game of the regular season, where they needed to capture at least a point at that time, but really they needed the win. They started off by going down 2-0.
You knew it was a Red Wings game all the way to the end of the season.
What did we say last episode? Don't expect the Red Wings to come out and play perfect, Colorado Avalanche, Tampa Bay Lightning in their prime hockey now. No, they are going to be wild card chaos through and through, and that's what they were. Lane Hutson gets his first NHL point, just as you could have bet all of your life savings on. And then Justin Barron scored the second goal for Montreal, and Detroit was down a quick 2-0, and everyone was like, okay, so what's
got him right where we want him.
For all the players who get all the attention from that game, JT Compher doesn't get enough. And I understand why. He's not the one that climbed the ladder to save the puck like Gostisbehere. He's not the one who scored the 2 goals like Lucas Raymond. But JT Compher's 2 goals to keep Detroit in it, to keep the lead to 2 after each period, that was massive. So JT Compher scored from Alex DeBrincat and Ben Sherratt to make it 2-1 at the end of the first. And that was absolutely key.
Yeah, that could absolutely have kickstarted the Red Wings come back in the second period to take a quick lead over Montreal early and really put their foot on the gas for the rest of the game. But then what happened, Ryan?
Then the same period happened. Montreal scored twice, and JT Compher scored at the end to, again, reduce the lead. So at the end of the first period, it was a 1-goal lead, and at the end of the second period, it was a 2-goal lead. But it's thanks to JT Compher that it wasn't 3 goals. And it was timely. It was within 30 seconds, essentially, of Montreal's 4th goal. And by that point, you're not getting a good goaltending game. And JT Compher, after his 4-1, and you were staring at intermission, you're like, okay, legitimately, this is it for the Red Wings. How are they going to come back down 3 in the third? That's going to be a tough ask. But then JT Compher pulled it within reach again.
Of the Red Wings' many flaws this year, the one that they surprisingly didn't have was resolve. Compete. A 2-goal lead in the third period against a mediocre team like Montreal was not the death sentence it was in previous years, where you knew when they went down 2 goals, pack it in, we're done here. They're not even getting 2 shots on net this period. So there was at least that feeling in the back of your head that they've done this a bunch this year. Their luck may have run out, but maybe we should just keep watching.
You know what saved them, though? The double octopus. 2 octopi thrown on the ice on the 72nd anniversary of the first ever octopus toss at a Red Wings game. They needed 2 goals. They go into the third period. No more goals against at that point.
A miracle.
And Alex DeBrincat, who was having a frustrating game. He was playing well, but it was the same thing. Posts, missing the net. I made that joke of, if the net was moved over an inch, he'd be like Alex Ovechkin, if almost scoring counted.
Hey, he got a assist on Compher's first goal.
Perron also made a great pass on Compher's second goal, I should say.
But yeah, he got an assist on Compher's first goal by hitting the post on an empty net. So further to your point.
That was one of those games where it's like, dude, you're down. Shoot everything. You don't have any games after this if you lose. Shoot every puck. I don't care. They were getting too cute.
After Raymond passed up the 2-on-1 with DeBrincat for a pass that everybody could see wasn't going to get through, that was when I decided to finally be that guy, and I tweeted, shoot.
You got to shoot.
It's one thing if you're playing Andre Vasilevsky or Connor Hellebuck, but Montreal was not having a great night in goaltending both games. So, yes, put everything on net, please.
It was nice that Alex DeBrincat broke through, and it's nice that Alex DeBrincat broke through with a shot that shouldn't have gone in. His whole thing is he now needs a shot to be perfect because he just has no confidence from his spot anymore. And he took a fadeaway shot from too far away. It was a fine shot, but an NHL goalie should have stopped it. And it got through. And that gave the Red Wings hope. With about 10 minutes left, 4-3. That's a 1-goal game. And then the intensity with which Detroit played after that, season on the line, I think JT Compher said, we are, maybe shouldn't be the case, but we are really comfortable with our backs up against the wall when we know we need to do it because we're just used to being there this season. And oh man, was it intense. But everyone, like you could hear the heartbeats in the LCA. And dude, Lucas Raymond, man, who was snake bitten all game. Obviously, he was like the story of the Red Wings this latter part of the season. Probably going to go down as the team MVP overall for the season. Perron makes a great pass to him, but even before that, the puck was almost clear out of the zone. Shayne Gostisbehere, the amount of height he got on that jump, perfectly timed. I saw the Odell Beckham meme. Most Seider's done this a couple times too, but got like Air Ghost, Gostisbehere were the two best ones that we saw.
Air Bear saves the puck, puts it down, makes a pass, keeps the play alive. The puck gets to Perron, who draws the defender towards him, makes a no-look pass, beautiful no-look pass to Lucas Raymond, who is left all alone in a moment that was scripted in a movie. And he walks in from the left side, takes his time, picks his spot, fires it home, and oh my God, that place went mental. I thought Lucas Raymond's tying goal against Pittsburgh was the most I've ever seen those guys fired up on the ice. Then I thought the Larkin OT goal against Toronto was the most I've ever seen those guys fired up on the ice. And then that Lucas Raymond tying goal was definitely the most I've ever seen those guys fired up on the ice. To that point. We talk about it a lot, and we're going to talk about it again in a second, but that guy he's ascended. There's skilled players who do it in general, and there's skilled players who do it in big moments, and that's hard to do. Like those knee knockers, those like your heart is pounding, 20,000 people staring at you, the hopes of an entire city banking on that puck on your stick. We've seen plenty of people choke it, and you don't remember them because they don't get the job done. Lucas Raymond has done it how many times this year? You probably need two hands to count. We won't do that as episode. We don't want to confuse Evan too much. Lucas Raymond ties it with just over a minute to go. What was it? Minute 17. Saved Detroit's season yet again. It's like a meme on the show. We always say like, oh, this is the biggest game that's ever been played at the LCA. This is the biggest game of the season. That was the biggest goal we've seen in this generation of the Red Wings. Lucas Raymond saved the Red Wings season for the umpteenth time. And then in overtime, that was his 30th goal of the year, by the way. Over 30 goals, over 70 points at age 22. Then in overtime, sends the puck up to Larkin. Larkin's gassed. Lucas Raymond keeps making a beeline down the right side. Larkin does a great job feeding it over to him. And then Lucas Raymond just blows the roof off of the LCA. We're going to have to, maybe we can get that LED roof after all, because there's no way that Little Caesars logo is still there after he blew that place up. It's worth noting that Larkin was gassed because he was at the end of a 45-minute shift. So was Raymond. And he won that race. Now, credit to Larkin. Larkin had about a 4-inch window in which to fit that puck so that it didn't end up too far ahead of Raymond and it didn't end up in the possession of the back-checking Canadiens player. And the catch and release. We've known Raymond's catch and release is ridiculous. It's one of his big strengths. Oh my God, was that perfect. The only downside of that entire moment, the pass, the goal, the celly, was that nobody on Twitter photoshopped him doing air guitar.
Was it an homage to Patrick Kane's windmill celly? I think it might have been.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I really hope so.
Because this is now a full court press to say, Patrick Kane, please stay in Detroit.
Yeah.
But he was like, at that point, he gave the Red Wings the best possible hope they could have to make the playoffs. And he put them in a position which was, yeah, they can go ahead and beat Montreal, but they're still going to need help. But it would have felt so terrible if the Red Wings didn't get the job done on Monday, right? And just made it easier for Washington to get in. Lucas Raymond, with just over a minute left, does what he does to tie the game and then wins in overtime. Like, that was his moment. That was the moment we're going to point back to when Lucas Raymond turns into like a superstar or a perennial all-star or whatever you want to call him. You're going to say, when did he truly emerge? You're going to say, well, it was there the whole time, but game 81 of that season, that was when things really transformed and he took over the Red Wings team in those big moments.
I wouldn't even say that's the moment. I think that was games 81 and 82 was the culmination of it. He was their only good player in March. It was 2 weeks ago he tied the game up against Columbus with 12 seconds left in this stretch of critical games. Larkin is this team's best player. I think everybody knows that. And it was pretty obvious for the last month and a half he was battling something. He didn't look like himself, even though he was still very effective. I think right now Lucas Raymond was the team MVP this year. Full stop. They're not in... We understand how the rest of the season played out. But they are not in this position where they are tied for the last playoff spot in points without Lucas Raymond this last 6 weeks. Almost every single point they had in the standings since the beginning of March when the rest of the team went in the toilet, you can almost circle the exact moment in the game where he got them that point or he got them to win. The hat trick and an assist in an OT loss against Pittsburgh, 12 seconds left against Columbus. I think there was another OT winner mixed in there somewhere. These 2 games against Montreal. They've only had like 5 or 6 wins since the beginning of March, and every one of them was Lucas Raymond.
It's funny that you said it was 2 weeks ago. It was actually 4, and that just goes to it's a testament to how crazy the passage of time has been since
time
all
is
this
a
started.
flat circle right now, and everything feels like it happened in the last 48 hours.
Yeah, I just...
Remember the trade deadline yesterday? I do.
It was actually 8 wins. With these 2 Montreal games, it was 8 wins, I believe, since the beginning of March, which isn't enough to make the playoffs, but it's crazy that they were still only 1 point out. You know, it's funny, we probably should have done... we probably should have captured the hype of the moment and done an emergency episode 2 nights ago because that was like the highest of highs. You didn't want to like jinx or spoil anything, and really just with timing, you had to wait because it was back-to-back games. But there was enough energy where we could have just the whole episode would have just been Lucas Raymond. We would have just screamed his name for about an hour, and it would have been great. What did we say at the start of the season, all off season, and even throughout this season? If the Red Wings are going to do this, which is almost what they did, make the playoffs, it has to be because Lucas Raymond took that next step. That's exactly what happened. And then he took 2 or 3 more. But there is no way. You're right, Brad. Larkin's this team's best player. I think that gap has closed a lot. You knew he was going to be this team's best player this year. Moritz Seider has that thankless job on defense. It was a lot more thankless this year than we would have liked for Moritz Seider's sake and the Red Wings' sake. Those 2 things were going to be constant. Yeah, we talked about goaltending, and yeah, we talked about depth, and the depth scoring for most of the year did come through in a big way, but there's no way Detroit takes that next step without Lucas Raymond, and that's what he did. From the highest of highs to the very next game against Montreal, 1 night later, Detroit, no matter what, needed to outpace Washington by 1 point. Washington was playing in Philadelphia. If Detroit lost in overtime or a shootout, then they would have needed Washington to lose in regulation and the Pittsburgh game to end with no more than 1 point being awarded to Pittsburgh. That hasn't even been played yet at the time of recording. But really, Detroit honestly needed the win. But they needed help too. How did Detroit start this game?
You'd never believe it.
I can't believe we're going to say this for the first time this season.
Alex Newhook scores to make it 1-0 Montreal halfway through the first period, and you could feel the anxiety in the air for Red Wings fans. It was... They couldn't mess around with this one. And they were on the road, too. You didn't have the energy of the LCA. You were wondering what they were going to do. Thank goodness Moritz Seider got a blast through from the point. It looked like it might have been deflected by DeBrincat, but it was just an absolute cannon. It was Seider's 9th of the year. 1 off from being another 10-goal scorer, but Seider from Larkin, who did a good job to get the puck back to him. And Raymond, who I believe that made it a 6-game point streak for him to close out the season, which was good. The Red Wings go in 1-1. That's fine. James Reimer in net, which I think had to be the call after Lyon's last couple of performances. I don't think you could have done anything other than James Reimer going in.
Oh, 100%. James Reimer is terrible, and I have zero faith in him as a goalie at this point in his career, and Lyon was somehow worse down the stretch.
Yeah, there's no good option. That's one. There are a lot of criticisms of the coaching staff and management that are very fair. For who does Derek Lalonde play? It's not even which is a hot hand. It's just which is less likely to lose you the game on balance. And they do it in different ways. When Lyon is bad, just no decent saves are made, period. If the shot is halfway good, it's getting through. When Reimer's bad, he makes either a highlight reel save that makes every network's, highlight of the night.
There was a couple last night.
Or the softest goal you've ever seen.
There was a couple last night.
Where you're like, why is he at the top of the circle? James! The amount of times I go, James, where are you? And he lives on either end of the spectrum.
He sometimes channels his inner Michael Phelps, and it just takes him where it's going to take him.
He's big game James for both teams.
Nick Suzuki had a shot in like center right of the slot last night, and it hit the post because James Reimer forgot to kick his left pad out. It was not great, but man, we said it before and we'll say it again. James Reimer is when the Red Wings win, he is the just win type goalie.
What a crazy year. I don't want to do that
I've never
again.
seen, you know what? James Reimer's been in the league a long time, but until he's on your team, you don't really understand the chaotic nature of his style. Man, is that something? Is that something to watch?
Maybe that's why I was so exhausted. It was just watching so much James Reimer in net.
That could be it.
The amount of different messages that came in all of our group chats that just went, James.
His cardio, though, is phenomenal for all the moving he does.
God. He's an active goalie, I'll tell you that. The Red Wings opened the second period, and again, 2 Montreal goals made it 3-1, 2-1 at the hands of Brendan Gallagher, and then Cole Caulfield to score 3-1. There was just a lot of, errors from Detroit's defense, taking away the shooter when they should have taken away the pass, sliding and missing the puck, a soft goal goes in, whatever. And it's same as the previous game. Montreal was showing up and they weren't making it easy for Detroit, and you were worried about it getting away from them. And then Joe Veleno scores on this broken play that goes off the goalie, pops up in the air, lands in front of him. He doesn't see it, and Veleno just whacks it in, and you're like, oh, thank the hockey gods. They want to keep this interesting.
Speaking of terrible goals, my God.
Yeah, Detroit got a lot of favors that game.
But Joe Veleno scoring in Montreal, automatic.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if Caden Primo, because there was a delayed penalty against Montreal, so I don't know if Caden Primo thought it was because he made a save that the play was going to get whistled dead, because he basically just stopped.
He just stood there.
Everyone stopped except for Joe Veleno, and who promptly put it in the net.
Third period, Daniel Sprong didn't take too long, about 3.5 minutes in. Ding dong, Daniel Sprong, who was like, if the end of the season has shown us anything, is that Daniel Sprong's probably on his way out.
Probably.
I'm being gentle. But he gave Detroit one last really great moment, probably, where he threw the puck in at an ugly angle. And again, Primo was like, well, there's not really a goaltending battle, so I'm not going to be great tonight. It's probably what he said.
I love when the opposing goaltender matches our goaltender's energy. Really makes a game of it.
And then 4-3.
That was just a sick tip.
Yeah. Uri Slavkovsky's 20th of the year.
That was a $250,000 tip because he hit his performance bonus for hitting 20 goals.
Did he really?
Yep.
Good for Uri. That's the kind of, everyone knew that draft wasn't going to be like a Jack Hughes, Connor Bedard, top end player draft. That guy took so much heat because he plays in the most intense hockey market in the world. I'm glad to see he's really come into form.
Yeah, an 18-year-old in his rookie year who was battling injuries, didn't have a phenomenal year, and Habs fans were all over him. They don't deserve nice things.
I wish he didn't start by drilling a Red Wings player from behind into the boards and breaking his face.
Yeah, that's not ideal.
We could have done without that.
Yeah, happy to see him shut up his own fan base, even if it is for their own good.
4-3 Montreal, and again, Detroit is in that spot where you're like, oh no.
That's with 7 minutes left in the game, essentially.
Yeah, and at this point, Washington and Philadelphia are tied. So you know that Detroit realistically, they need this win here. Or at the very least, Washington and Philly are going to probably go to overtime, is what they're thinking. You can't lose in regulation.
Philadelphia also had a goal called back last night.
Oh,
so
don't
I don't want to
get me started.
Dig the knife a little bit deeper.
We're going to get into that. All hands on deck, full scramble at the end, icings.
It was, and I would say on balance for that last little, desperation to tie the game, the Red Wings were pretty disjointed for a lot of it. Derek Lalonde unwillingly had to take a timeout to draw up a play, which promptly was cleared out of the zone by Montreal. And I was like, there's no way this team is coming back. Look how bad, and they can't connect any passes. They can't get into the Montreal zone. I was not confident at that point.
Even Slavkovsky's goal, it came after Perron was tripped into the net and then was held down by Primo forever. The play wasn't whistled dead. There's no penalty, and the Red Wings didn't have a single power play all game, which I was like, okay, you're not going to call that trip. That is the biggest game balance call you could have made, right?
Nick Suzuki's standing there he knows he's going to jail.
And then Primo just at least blow the play dead. But no, they go down, they score, and they go up, and you're like, oh, if we have to complain about the refs
just
ending
one
Detroit
more,
season,
just one more time for old time's sake.
I'd honestly prefer the referees got in their car and hit me with it. Like,
now that's content.
broken plays, miscalled icings, center ice faceoffs, like you said, Evan, timeouts, they clear the zone, all of that. Detroit doesn't get the power play, careless stick penalty, whatever you want to call it. But then Detroit puck in Montreal's zone, 7.7 seconds left. And David Perron gives us one final, oh my God, what did Ken call it? The cardiac kids?
Yeah.
The cardiac kids is right, man. My heart rate has never varied that much. We joked about the Whoop last episode. I actually have one on right now.
Were you wearing it?
No, I only got it today. I wish I would.
That would have been great.
I nearly fell off the railing at Hockeytown Cafe. I swear I almost did. I cannot believe that they did it. How do they keep doing this? How did they do this that many times?
They always trail in hockey games. That's why.
We watched them for years, almost a decade, trail in hockey games and then just lose it.
Usually by more.
So, Brad, we have a good friend of the podcast. You'll remember him, OSBP. He texted me, actually.
Really?
And he said, in a joking voice, he said, I never want to hear Brad talk about how faceoffs don't mean anything anymore. Because that was the biggest faceoff win that the Red Wings have had since we started this podcast.
Yeah,
Red Wings were only 45% on the faceoffs last night, too.
Going into that faceoff, too, and I didn't have any stats in front of me, but I felt like the Red Wings had lost every important faceoff leading up to that moment, too. Like, I was like, they're going to lose this draw, and that's the end of the season. Like, I was resigned to it. And then that's the one they win.
David Perron with a fadeaway slap shot from the top of the blue line.
Even that pass from Gostisbehere, like, you only have 7 seconds left. If you try to spin or ram a no-look pass like that on the blue line in the middle of, like, the third period, your coach is benching you for the rest of the game. Like, don't even risk it. But, man, it somehow worked.
It's almost like it's like eating a bag full of candy. Like, the Raymond tying goal, the Raymond overtime winning goal, Perron tying it with 3 seconds left to save the season. Like, how do you even give all of that the emotion, the attention it deserves on air? Any one of those would have been worthy of its own, emergency episode on this podcast. And the Red Wings have just been banger after banger after massive moment after massive moment. And we're talking so positively. They got to this spot because of remarkable failures at different points, some due to factors outside of their control, some because of poor play. Regardless, this whole season was every range of emotion, but oh my God. Credit to them for pulling through and bringing it down to the wire. Like, by all rights, it shouldn't even have come down to Philly pulling the net. Detroit would have lost the game previous, but they just refuse. Is too angry to die is what they were for the past 2 games.
Definitely. Man too angry to die. That's a great way of putting it. The real annoying part about this, if you get into the meaningless stuff of this, the huge comeback against Pittsburgh to get a point, you take down the vaunted Leafs on Austin Matthews' chase for 70 in overtime. And then these crazy 2 games. This would have been one of the most, oh my God, they actually made it moments in the salary cap era of how the hell is this team actually in the playoffs right now?
Yep.
Like, the Red Wings were the talk of the hockey world for about a 4-day stretch there, leading up to with the Pittsburgh, Toronto, and 2 Montreal games. It's not all, but it was mostly what people around the league were talking about. The Red Wings are almost never in the national spotlight because they've been so bad for so long. They were barely in the national spotlight this year outside of a couple moments because they were mostly a mediocre, middle of the pack, whatever, who cares team. And all of a sudden, for a 6-day stretch, nobody can get enough of the Red Wings because it's so crazy. And then they just miss out. Every non-Bruins, Rangers, Leafs, and Hawks fan would have been cheering for them in the first round against the Rangers. It would have been crazy.
I think it was Biz who said, you want the Red Wings in right now just based on the excitement. Like, the Caps, that's the worst team I've ever seen make it. Like, they're not good. It's just Charlie Lindgren has decided to fully will them into the playoffs, and then Alex Ovechkin remembered that he's the greatest goal scorer of all time at some point, and those two things have combined to them making it. It's not a good or exciting team. Also think of how many people in league offices are like, no. Like, Washington's not a bad hockey market at all, but to get an original six Red Wings market back in the playoffs would have been big dollars.
And an original six matchup in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah.
The Rangers Red Wings would have been big time. And again, the Red Wings are the most entertaining breed of hockey. They can't get a save. They can't defend 90% of the time, but their top line was so damn good, they were scoring their way out of these problems. It was, okay, we're going to cave and give up all these goals and then basically turn into Usain Bolt in the last 10 minutes of the game to try and tie it every game.
It would have
sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't, but that's basically what they were.
It would have been an exciting 7 days, that's for sure.
They saw James Reimer in net. They're like, let's do that, but the entire team. So here's the timeline of how it all happened. Detroit tied the game with 3 seconds left. It was, according to the NHL, 9:33 Eastern. 1 minute later at 9:34 Eastern, Philadelphia had over 3 minutes remaining in their game, and they pulled their goalie in a 1-1 game. And the reason they did that is because their only path in was a regulation win against the Washington Capitals. But that only mattered if Detroit got 0 points and lost in regulation. So the fact that Detroit sent it to overtime meant that Philly was already out. So a minute after Detroit had sent it to overtime, Philly still pulled their goalie. And we'll get into the Torts explanation in a minute here. Philly pulled their goalie in a 1-1 game in regulation. Detroit secures their point in that same minute. And then a minute later at 9:35, Washington scores a go-ahead goal and takes the lead 2-1, and they have the win. Philly still pulled their goalie again, and the game played out. But by the time Detroit got to the shootout, the entire bench had learned that they were out of it, which is why they were all so depressed after Kane scored, a sick shootout winner. Was that his last moment as a Red Wing? We'll get into that. The heart-wrenching part is that you knew this scenario because it's not on Philly for pulling the goalie. That was the only way they could make it in, and you knew they had to try that. But the really, really, really heart-wrenching part, even more than Washington scoring on an empty net that was ultimately futile, is that it was futile by the time they had even pulled the goalie. It was already futile. And you want to be mad at Philly, but to me, I'm like, you're just mad at the situation. John Tortorella confirmed after that he only got the update after he had pulled the goalie, like very soon after. And if you think about that timeline, like, are you really going to not pull it when you just got that information? Let's say he got it a few seconds before. I don't know. Trying to look at it objectively, you probably still run the same. I don't know.
Yeah, if I was Tortorella, I would have done exactly what he did, even if I had got the information 30 seconds before he pulled the goalie, because
5 minutes is different, but
yeah, 30 seconds, because at that time, could you imagine a scenario if you're Philly, you get word Detroit tied the game with 3 seconds left. That game's going to overtime. You're sitting on your bench going, well, do we pull our goalie now? No, they scored. I guess it doesn't matter. Don't pull the goalie. Let the game play out, go to overtime, miss the playoffs, whatever. Just to find out that, let's say there was a hypothetical goalie interference review in Montreal and you find out the goal got overturned and you never pulled the goalie.
Well, that's why the game was so far behind the Philly-Washington game, is because of the goal that got called back. They had a lengthy review, and that's why the Red Wings game ended before.
Yeah, like, don't get me wrong. I'm furious at Philly for not winning the game, but I'm not even a little mad for that decision. It's 100% what any of us would have done. It's what any good coach would have done. Even if they knew, it was probably the game plan going in. Just, if we're tied, we're pulling the goalie, and we're not straying from that because that's the game plan. It's our only way in. We're sticking to it.
Well, the thing that I'm really mad at is the goal that was called off.
Yes.
Philly took the lead. It was a puck that Lindgren didn't have. It went into the net, but the referee blew the play dead for whatever reason. The whistle didn't change anything within the play. Like, that puck, that was a goal. That was a good NHL hockey goal that was called off due to the referee making a mistake, a bad mistake in game 82 that had playoff implications for 3 separate teams. 4 if you count Pittsburgh. Egregious mistake. And the only solace you can take is like, oh, it happened at the beginning of the game, so whatever. That's the difference. Like, we can point to the Red Wings dropped points against Arizona. The Red Wings dropped points here. The Red Wings didn't beat Pittsburgh or Washington, whatever. If a goal was counted as a goal, we might not be having this conversation.
Yeah.
Well, teams adjust their strategy based on what the score of the game is. Philadelphia pulled their goalie with 3-4 minutes left in a tied game, based on the scoreline.
And Tortorella is a good defensive coach. If they get a 2-goal lead, he's parking the bus.
It's, again, it was heartbreaking for so many reasons, and we're not saying that Detroit didn't deserve to ultimately miss because, you know, they lost a lot of games when they needed to win them.
Oh, yeah. But we will have a lot to say in the season in review episode on Sunday.
But it does not change the fact that this is the circumstances by which they missed, tied at 91 points, and 1 point could have gone their way in the Washington-Philly game a lot more readily. That's heartbreaking. Not that you would have preferred they lost either game against Montreal, but it does, like, with the moment as big as they are and with the Red Wings winning in as insane a fashion as they did, that was like...
It's tough missing out by a single point because you start to look back at all of the overtime losses or the games where they just gave the game away. If they missed the playoffs by 10, it would be a lot more difficult to really pin down those moments. But man, just sitting here thinking, I'm like, oh, remember when they were up 4-0 against San Jose and they've screwed that up and lost in overtime? Man, that point would have been really nice. You can just think about countless moments, but I know we'll do a deeper dive on that at a later time.
Well, I'll take the optimistic view here just for the sake of throwing some out into the universe. If you're going to miss the playoffs, this was about best case scenario to miss the playoffs from what it means going forward. Because the way they finished the season, Raymond, DeBrincat, Larkin, Seider, Edvinsson, they're all going into next season with confidence.
The important pieces were the ones who were the shining stars at the end of the year.
Yeah, they'll have this huge confidence of, we can do this in the most important times. We've got this. We're going to get better. We're going to get there. We are the future of this team, whatever mentality they want to have. It's happening next year. They now understand that they cannot let the foot off the gas at any point over the 82 games because of the point Evan just made. They know that. They're even more acutely aware of that. They know they didn't lose the playoffs this week. They know they lost it in March. So they are going to have that mentality of can't take a night off, can't take a night off. And also because of the awful officiating in the Philly-Washington game, and I'll even go back to the Pittsburgh game where they lost the point in overtime because some absolutely horrendous officiating in that game, they're going to be pissed.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have a chip on their shoulder. They're going to have the confidence, and now they're going to have the knowledge of what consistency really, truly means in this league. So if you're taking any solace in missing the playoffs, understand that this was the best case scenario as to how it could have played out going into next season. The heartbreak is bigger, but from what it means going forward, that's a good thing.
It's a learning experience, right? Like, we learned a lot about Lucas Raymond. We learned a lot about Moritz Seider. We learned a lot about Dylan Larkin.
Simon Edvinsson. I think we've got a good idea of what he's looking like now. So next season, you've got so much excitement building on the backs of all those players with some rookies coming in as well. So, you know, we'll obviously look back at December and March and say, what happened? And we'll obviously have some more critical views of the Red Wings season in totality. But I think right now, you know, focusing on the last two games and seeing that the right players made the big impacts at the right time is probably the best takeaway to have.
You want to know the most optimistic part for me?
You got the point total right?
You want to know the second most optimistic part for me?
No.
Those points that you two just made, like, we joke a lot about, like, oh, I'm the optimist this season. And we take our turns being who's pessimistic and who's not. Unanimous across all three of us with varying amounts of negativity and criticism for this team. All three of us independently got that same feeling of hope at the end of the season based on what you just said. To clarify for the listeners, we did not discuss his points that we just made pre-show. That's real. Like, the right things came up at the right time. You have the right anger to fuel you. You have the right experience to do it better next time. The management has the, a little bit more of the formula so they can hopefully make the changes they need. I'm sure Derek Lalonde learned a lot. And if you had to draw silver linings at a heartbreak, that's what Detroit did. Like, Detroit was able to, through Raymond, through Edvinsson, through Larkin and Seider, like, that's what they were able to do. So it sucks. It sucks because they put themselves there. It sucks because other teams put them there. It sucks because they ultimately fell short, but there is good to come from this. More on that in a moment. We're going to take a break here first to let you know that this episode of the Winged Wheel podcast is proudly brought to you by Labatt Blue Light. Created in 1983, this premium light Canadian Pilsner is a delicately balanced beer brewed with Cascade hops and a blend of malt. It's fresh, crisp, and brewed to the highest quality standards. There's a little bit of Canadian kindness in every sip of Labatt Blue Light. How did it get in there? They're Canadian. That's how. You can spread the love yourself by sharing a Labatt. And when you do share a Labatt, you're not just sharing a beer. You're sharing an experience that'll pair with anything from hockey to a hoedown. So next time you're watching a hockey with your buds, be sure to share a Labatt, because while you might not all root for the same team, although we on this podcast do hope you're rooting for the Red Wings, you can all enjoy a Labatt Blue Light. We honestly love going to games in Detroit and seeing Labatt being the beer that fans clamor for all over the arena. It's a reliable beer and great to have in your hand when celebrating a goal. So head to the link in the description of this episode or the one you see on your screen to find Labatt in stores near you today. You must be 21 or older, and as always, enjoy responsibly. Okay, welcome back. That was the two Red Wings games. We were talking like, oh, wow. That was quite a bit of time on two games that ultimately ended. We already knew the result. The Red Wings missed the playoffs, but again, two biggest games of the year. So what's upcoming for the Winged Wheel podcast? The episodes to come and really the team, we're going to be covering first a season in review, as we usually do, where we're going to recap the entire season. And that's where you're going to hear us talk more about, the highest highs and what happened in March with all that losing streak. And I know some people who have a more pessimistic and negative view than maybe our hope light at the end of the tunnel that we gave you before the ad break. That's where you're going to get a lot more of that fulsome conversation, as Evan referred to, where you're going to hear the criticisms of the season as it went on and what went wrong for Detroit and also what went right. Like, again, you don't get to almost being a playoff team without a lot of good moments too. So the fully detailed season in review episode is going to come up. We're also going to do a little bit of a preview into what the Red Wings have up next. Moritz Seider's contract, Lucas Raymond's contract, as both of those guys come off their ELCs. We're going to be talking about the NHL draft and those prospects. We're going to be talking about free agency. All of that is going to be in there. The Patrick Kane story is going to start now. Like, we're going to give that a little bit of time here, but that's going to be ongoing. So, I was laughing. I was actually talking to Ken, and we were like, we didn't use up all our content in January or February because Detroit was in it until the last day, game 82. I set our benchmark this year as like, if they are competitive in mid-March to late March, that's phenomenal. Last day of the season, last minute of the season, really.
Well, they weren't competitive in March, but they were still in the playoff picture.
They took March off to be competitive in April. That's right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we have a lot of content coming.
You know what I learned about this morning?
ABCs?
Berkeley Catton.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's... I didn't have to start that until April 17th. Do you know how happy that makes me?
It's kind of refreshing. I don't hate prospect profiles. I hated them for years there.
I mean, I do still, but I can do them for 2 months. I'm glad we don't have to do them for 4 or 5 months this year.
Okay, Patrick Kane. This is going to be a conversation that's going to come up probably until free agency starts. But based on the questions that were posed to him before and after that game, what impression did you get? Because he used a lot of verbiage of like, yeah, of course I'd be interested in staying in Detroit. I love it here. And he also used a lot of verbiage that kind of made people uneasy, which is, if you're a Red Wings fan, there's a lot of great things coming for this team. They have a lot of really great pieces, and these players, like them, they're going to be fantastic, and they, blah, 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 not really referring to it as we. So as a disclaimer, Patrick Kane is intensely guarded about his decision-making, especially later in his career. Also, a player in his position is going to be negotiating even when he's not in the room. So, a lot of those are messages to Steve Yzerman, probably. Maybe he wants more term. Maybe he wants more money. All of that's in play. But what impression did you walk away with?
That he's negotiating. Of course he's going to say he loves it in Detroit. And before I make my follow-up point, I want to say I genuinely believe him when he says he's loved his time in Detroit and he loves it here. But I also believe if he hated it, he would still say he loved it, because that's what hockey players do.
Mm-hmm.
If he thought he was going to sign a contract extension here, he's going to negotiate through the media to try and get more money. If he plans on signing a contract elsewhere, he's going to negotiate through the media to try and get more money. Like, I don't take these exit interviews for anything unless someone is saying something very, very clearly. Like, yeah, it was fun, but now I'm going to go test free agency. Like, unless that statement comes out of a player's mouth, I take these exit interviews with a grain of salt. And yeah, there's maybe some things you can take here and there, but I'm not a psychologist, so I'm not going to be able to pick them out.
He'd be silly to come out with a very pointed statement. At the end of the day, it's all business, and whether Patrick Kane likes it or not, his career is on the back nine, and it's quickly approaching its end. And if he wants to squeeze out as many dollars as he can, these are the types of statements I would be making as well.
Yeah, the career on the back nine is the really, that's the actual crux of it. That's the material part, and it's nothing that he said. But if his analysis is that these Red Wings are really good, but not good enough for me with how many years I have left, because if he thinks I have 2-3 years left, then he's like, am I going to win a cup in that? It would be kind of miraculous for the Red Wings to win a cup 3 years from now, which is honest. It would be that's
meteoric.
Pie in the sky would be putting it lightly. He can believe that the Red Wings would be a playoff team next year and the year after, and they might win a round or two over those 3 years for sure. But he wants a cup. So it's for him, it's probably the calculation of, I'm playing in an original six market that has embraced me. They've revived the concept of showtime. They heard how when the LCA blew up, that is probably one of the loudest barns in the NHL, if not the loudest in that moment. He loves that glory. But at the end of the day, if he cares about lifting that 30-pound silver mug, is he going to look at New York? Is he going to look at Vegas? Is he going to look at one of the Florida teams? That would be what ultimately does it. It's not because Detroit did anything to let him down in terms of his time here. He might just think the timeline is wrong.
Yeah, it's going to come down to what he values more, money or the cup, because without looking around cap friendly at every single contender's, cap situation for next year, if he wants good money and some term, it's going to be a tough squeeze for a lot of the teams that he would probably want to go to win a cup. Whereas we know Detroit can handle that, and at least they're a team on the upswing. It's going to be a fascinating decision because, obviously for every player, every single player in the league, the two most important things are cup and money. And Kane's situation probably dictates he's going to have to heavily prioritize one over the other.
Yeah, that's, when I was thinking about Patrick Kane coming back or not to the Red Wings today, there's so many different lenses you can look at. And what does Patrick Kane truly want? I don't think anyone really knows other than Patrick Kane. It's, does he want money? Well, there's only so many teams that have got the money and he can push his salary upwards. Does he want to win a cup? Well, there's only so many teams I would consider who are true contenders that would be able to fit Patrick Kane in their lineup if he wants money. Does he enjoy being in Detroit? From all signs, I would say yes. It looks like his family has an amazing relationship with the DeBrincats. His dad can now drive a little bit closer to games.
Yeah.
It's what Patrick Kane wants is the biggest unknown, and we'll find out soon enough.
More on that to come. Let's jump over into some NHL news. The Red Wings signed Shai Buium to his entry-level contract soon after he won his second national title with Denver. That was to be expected. And as usual, at this time of the year, that also comes with the tryout, the Griffins, as he joins that team at the end of this season. And just this is a big whole, hey, the Griffins are now going to make a playoff run. They had Edvinsson and Zach Aston-Reese sent back down, Zarnik on waivers, to the Griffins to help them with that playoff run. So they're thrilled to have those guys back, especially Edvinsson. the Griffins could make a run at this, and that's big for Detroit because Detroit wants to see what Edvinsson can do there next year. They want to see what Kasper can do there next year. Maybe Mazur, Johansson. Like, this is going to mean a lot. And one of the organizational priorities this season was to get the Griffins back on track. They have already accomplished that, and they could make even more of it.
Well, depth wins championships, so having 10 quality defensemen on your roster is going to help because that's where Grand Rapids is sitting right now.
So the right hat to wear for me this episode, go Griffins. Okay, the Red Wings, because people are going to be asking, they are outside of the playoffs and thus technically in the draft lottery, but we should inform people that they cannot draft higher than 5th this year. So they are 15th of 16 teams in the draft lottery. And with the new system that was put into place not too long ago, they can only move up 10 spots. So Detroit has a approximately 1.1% chance of moving up to spot number 5. Otherwise, they are going to be drafting, 15th. In all likelihood, small chance of drafting 16th in case St. Louis moves up 10 spots. So Detroit can't get first overall. They're not getting Celebrini either. They're not going to be in the conversation for Demidov or anything like that. But
hit the button.
If they get 5th.
Hit the button once.
You want to simulate the lottery once?
If
they win this, I'm deleting this whole episode.
Okay.
We're going home. Oh, I thought they did it. Oh my God, I thought they did it. My eyes glazed over.
San Jose with the first overall pick, and if my eyes see me, Utah picking 2nd.
The league rigged claims would never be louder than if Utah gets his 2nd overall pick.
I think they'd be louder if they got 1st.
Yeah, that's a great point, Brad. But that would be the NHL saying, we can't have them suspect us. We'll make it 2nd. Then we'll get away with it. So that's Detroit's draft situation. So mid-teens is where they're going to be picking, unless they make a trade.
I did one today where I only did one. And when I did it, New Jersey moved up 9 spots and won the draft lottery.
No.
Stop. Okay, I know we said we do full playoff series analysis, but obviously we had to talk a lot about the Red Wings, which is deserved because for the biggest games and moments of the season, which is saying a lot. But very quickly, let's talk about the playoff series as they're set. Rangers and Capitals.
Rangers in 3.
You know what? It's funny because I really have a lot of time for both of those teams in general. But there's a sour taste in Detroit's mouth. And the Caps took it to the Red Wings in 2 very key games recently.
No. Charlie Lindgren took it to the Red Wings in 2 very key games. So I have tons of respect for Alex Ovechkin and his goal chase and what Charlie Lindgren's done. Still, I wish them nothing but misery and failure in this playoff series.
I've heard from people in the league, and they've been like, the Capitals aren't good. And I'm like, no, they're not. They're just getting goaltending.
Yeah.
I'd argue if you put Charlie Lindgren and how he was performing on the Red Wings, how far up the standings would they be?
They would have
challenged for that 3rd division.
Yeah,
seed.
they would have been within striking range of Toronto.
They would have had at least 91 points.
They wouldn't have been worse, is a great way to put it, Evan.
They would have somehow got 3rd in the Metro.
Hurricanes and Islanders. The Isles better hope Sorokin shows up.
That'll be a quick one if Sorokin is bad.
Yeah.
That is the series in the first round that I care about the least.
Carolina's an absolute buzzsaw right now.
We say that a lot of years.
But this year, I actually believe it.
Yeah, they need until they get a save in the playoffs. I have a hard time buying into Carolina.
Panthers and Lightning. That's going to
be so good.
That's going to be a bloodbath, right?
Oh, I am the biggest 1-8 in reseed truther there is out there, and even I am such a Neanderthal for the bloodbath that is the Battle of Florida.
Will we see 2 Russian goalies fight?
Hockey gods willing.
Like, that's the best series in the first round on paper, yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think no one wants the Lightning.
Let's talk about the other Atlantic Division.
I'm talking about on the ice, not what's going to happen between fan bases.
Steve Dangle's a good friend of ours. He genuinely is. We chat and connect quite a bit. And I have to tell you, when I just come across his videos, like his LFRs, and his LFR where Toronto locked in another series against the Boston Bruins in the first round.
Oh, it's spring in Ontario when?
People are going to think that his laughing hysterics is all like contrived for camera. And Steve's a big personality. Like there's no Steve on this show. Steve's he's a unicorn. And we love him for it. But I want you to know his reaction was very real. Yeah, that is a broken man.
That wasn't a bit. That is
a broken man.
That was a documentary.
That's a broken man that's learned how to weaponize that into a career. Thankfully for him and his family, but that is a broken man.
The only difference between him and your average Leaf fan is he decided to throw a camera in front of it.
Unbelievable. Okay, moving over to the Western Conference. The only series that's set in the West, so you can't really get into predictions. I know we had big ambitions of doing that, but the only series that's set is Jets Avalanche, that's actually going to be quite a good one too. Connor Hellebuck's not a fun goalie to face.
Yeah, I was going to say, the only thing that could stop Colorado any given year is an elite goaltender. Well,
yeah,
here they are. And surprisingly, Winnipeg has home ice advantage.
Winnipeg's been playing really well lately, too, where Colorado's been kind of just okay. So, yeah, that series will be great.
And by the time you listen to this, you'll probably know what the series are. But at the time of recording, it's game 81 or even game 80 for some teams. So what the first seed is in the conference can change between Vancouver and Dallas. LA could jump into a Pacific Division seed. Nashville's locked into the first wildcard seed, but it's all messed up. You made the joke just now, Evan, off air, but NASA has to figure this out. I'm not a big, it has to be the simplest possible format guy, but very lately I've been, when I had to calculate all those decisions after game 80, like before games 81 and 82 for Detroit, and it factored into the Islanders and all those if-and scenarios, I was like, I would have been better off coding a new app for the NHL from scratch. Go back to 1 verse 8, please.
It's poor fan experience.
Anyhow, we'll do more on the playoffs in coming episodes. Other news across the NHL, Mark Stone is back again.
I, for one, am shocked.
Connor McDavid reached 100 assists, which I, as a person who likes to see milestones reached when they're deserved, I was happy to see that because he was hurt and you were wondering if that was going to be spoiled.
Can I ask a question? Is Mark Stone cleared to play on Thursday?
Oh, yeah. Oh, he's cleared.
There are no words. There are no words.
He is cleared, my friend. And then before we record this episode, we won't know if Austin Matthews is going to reach goal 70, but that's something else everyone is looking at. We'll do more NHL news before next episode. Very quickly, there are a few things we want to point to. First off, the Athletics annual poll on the best local broadcast teams across the NHL is out. Obviously, there's a lot of great crews across the league. I believe Seattle's won it last year. We know how fortunate we are to have, Bally Sports Detroit and everyone involved. Ken and Mick. Ken's goal calls,
Ken's been on a heater this season.
Oh.
He's got to win.
The only shame is that they couldn't give him some playoff games, but they have given him so many big moments, and those players they're gonna have those highlight reels and those memories of Ken calling it in the best of possible ways. And Mick's, look out, what's this? Like that kind of moment, like Detroit really, and top to bottom. And I also, Ken Cowell on the radio deserves a shout out too, but we'll link to the poll in the description of this episode. We encourage you to go and fill it out. The Red Wings truly are a very fortunate fan base to have the best crew pound for pound in sports, in professional North American sports. I genuinely believe that. We also wanted to do a quick shout out again to Gina Trotman and Brad Galley of TV20 Detroit. They had us on. They made the Winged Wheel podcast part of the pre and post game broadcast for the last 2 away games of the season. So I was down in Hockeytown Cafe with Gina both times. Really great. Gina was especially amazing in making sure that I didn't put my foot in my mouth on live TV. So
can't edit those, my friend.
No, it is a different beast, let me tell you. Also, the talent that Gina and Brad have, because the producer's in your ear and you're hearing things like 30 seconds, like rap.
You're trying to talk at the same time. I'd be just saying what they're saying in my ear.
Dude, it was remember when I was joking with you guys about when I was trying to read my wedding vows and that speaker was speech jamming me?
That would be it.
It was like, I was like,
I get PTSD.
And then they'll be like clear. And then I looked at Gina. I went, how do you do this? Because then there was a bunch of noise behind us in Hockeytown Cafe. She's like, oh, you just get used to it. I was like, you're extremely talented. So thank you to them for carrying and making sure that I didn't get the podcast canceled, but awesome for us to be able to have that opportunity. So TV20 Detroit does a phenomenal job. Always loved Gina and Brad's work. I encourage you to obviously tune in, but that was a really great experience. And then finally, Prashanth Iyer has put out a lot of really great stuff recently in terms of, here's different ways you can support the Jamie Daniels Foundation, especially through Wings Money on the Board. There was an initiative at the end of the season to donate based on the winning goal for game 82 or whatever it was. So big shout out to everyone who donated. If you did make a pledge through Wings Money on the Board, now's the time. Go to the link in the description to make that donation through our link, justgiving.com/wingsmoney on the board. If you forget what you pledged, you can email us at wingedwheelpodcast@gmail.com and we'll let you know. So it's time to collect those pledges and you'll be entered into all of our rewards. Okay. Let's jump into overtime. Overtime in this episode of the Winged Wheel Podcast is proudly brought to you by our Patreon supporters, patreon.com/wingedwheelpodcast. The bonus episodes, the Discord with the live streams, and all of our giveaways are just some of the great benefits. You allow us to continue to grow and produce the show and do a whole off season's worth of content. You allow us to support the Jamie Daniels Foundation, and also you allow us to produce shows like Expected by Whom, hosted by Prashant Iyer and Sean Shapiro. So again, patreon.com/wingedwheelpodcast. We have quite a few comments from our patrons, so why don't we jump into it here? First question from Brian Vasha says, another great season listening to you and looking forward to this offseason. How quickly do you feel we will see activity on getting contracts for Seider, Raymond, and Kane? Also, is Husso a buyout option or a trade? Thank you.
Based on Steve Yzerman's history, they're not going to be quick. And based on how many buyouts a team would like to carry and what I think they're going to do buyout-wise this summer, I don't think Husso's going to be a contender for that.
If anything, he's just going to be LTIR'd, right?
Yeah, he is a great candidate to be a third goalie because, man, that injury history of the last couple of years is concerning. Through no fault of his own, but it's concerning.
Jake I. True says, if you're Stevie Y, who are you bringing back for next year and who are you letting walk / trading away / buying out now that the season is over and you can evaluate the whole year? I feel like this team is going to look way different next year. We're going to go into this a lot upcoming, but just some quick notes. We hinted at it earlier in the show. I think Daniel Sprong's gone. I think him being sat didn't sit well with him, and him not, figuring out his responsibility with the puck didn't sit well with the team. I don't think they're seeing eye to eye right now. He's going to be on another team next year.
The question was, what would we do?
Yeah.
For UFAs, I would bring back Kane. I would love to bring back Gostisbehere, but I have a hard time seeing Detroit being able to afford him. That's probably it for the UFAs. I would like Perron to come back, but I'm curious to see what the dollar figure would have to be for that to work. And I have at least 2 buyouts on my mind. Hole for sure. And I would take a long, hard look at Kopp. Probably a year too early for Kopp, but I think it needs to be considered. Not that he's a bad player. He's just nowhere near worth what he's getting paid.
That's going to be a big topic of discussion this summer and one it's of substance.
Yeah.
All right. Next question here is from Cletus. Says, does Raymond have another level he's just beginning to unlock? By the numbers, he's right up there with guys like Kucherov in his first 250 plus games as far as stats go. That contract may have just gotten a bit more expensive after these last 10 games or so, but he may be a steal in years 4 to 8 if they can lock him down long term. Yeah, the Boldy comp is gone.
Yeah, no, Lucas Raymond is more likely than not to be a 90-point player one day after what he showed in the toughest games of the year.
We didn't think that was impossible. I genuinely believed he could get here. I didn't think he would do it all this season. And he has shown enough this season where I wouldn't be surprised if next season is 90. Granted, you can't become a 90-point player if your teammates get worse. So let's say Detroit has to take a step back next year. You're going to have to temper expectations a little bit if Kane's no longer in the offense and they can't replace those goals from someone. But the guy's he's a special player in big moments. Next one here from Evans RBF. I just like that name. Says, to quote Michael Scott, I am dead inside. Even though I wasn't expecting us to make the playoffs, sucks we had to go out the way we did. The only good thing to come out of this is that Pittsburgh won't be in the playoffs, which makes my sad heart feel better. Do you guys feel this team could make the playoffs next year if they make the right moves in the offseason?
Well, yeah, absolutely. But being able to make those right moves is going to be a whole nother thing.
What if they make the wrong moves?
The worst part is that's actually not a bad question. But
James Haggins, Michael Misa, we'll start looking into them.
A team like Colorado, for example, who just has that talent just baked into their core, you can make the wrong moves and still make the playoffs and be a cup contender. A team who is very much in, metamorphosis, this is a delicate team right now. So you can actually do more damage, and like the stakes are higher either direction for a team in Detroit's position.
Well, if we're talking about making the wrong moves and making it, do you think that individually Raymond, Larkin, and DeBrincat could hit 100 points?
Any single one of them?
All three of them at the same time.
All 300 points between them?
Yes.
No.
Then they're not making the playoffs if they make the wrong moves.
Matt Balker says, a good season with a bummer of an ending. A year on, how do you grade the Hronek trade? That is, you know what? It is a very fair question. Did you see his chirp where he told Calgary their vacation starts in 2 days?
I still love that, man. That was phenomenal. Here's the thing, though. Hronek's due a big raise this offseason, and given Detroit's cap circumstance and where they need the most help, it was still the right move because he's going to get $7, $8, $9 million this offseason long term.
Oh, yeah.
And then you go look at what Axel Sandin Pellikka did this year. I'm feeling pretty great about that trade, and that's even acknowledging how great Hronek is.
And, the criticism might be, you made it a year too early because he would have helped the cup run or the playoff run this year. And
he's playing with Quinn Hughes.
And that's one part of it. And second, if he was on the Red Wings this year with how well they were doing this year, there's no way Yzerman would have traded him in this playoff run. And then there's a chance he lost him for nothing. And you walked away with Sandin Pellikka. So, yeah, it hurts to see him make a difference for maybe a cup favorite in the West. Vancouver won their division for the first time in, 10 years? But, yeah, he's playing with Quinn Hughes, and it's all about the future. Detroit Hockey Fan 14, longtime patron, says, hey guys, love the show. The pod really increases my enjoyment of hockey season. That's a miracle, but we'll take it. Says, when do you think the Wings' actual cup window is, and what do you think Stevie is targeting in terms of that?
It's probably going to have to open in about 2 to 3 years, realistically. And remember, we've talked about cup windows before. The good teams build 5, 6, 7 year cup windows. It's not a 2-3 year. But if it takes longer than that, then you are at the risk of even the young guys now starting to age out to have a lengthy cup window. Because if your cup window's opening when Seider and Raymond and Edvinsson are, 26, 27, 28, you're not going to get that many kicks at the can. You got to start at least being competitive when they're like 22, 23, 24, in that range. At least a couple of them being in that range at that point.
And as the rain comes down outside, Hockeytown Racing Academy says we had an 8-point cushion before our veteran leadership took a month off, and now we're out of the playoffs for the 8th straight year after Philly decided to pull their goalie with 3 minutes left while tied. I'm going to go cry again. Why is it tiebreaker regulation wins and not total wins? Also, we should just get rid of points altogether and use win-loss records. The NHL rewards losing. It's stupid. It's regulation wins because they are trying to mitigate the impact of the loser point. That's what they're trying to outweigh it with. Winning in 60.
Now go look at the Islanders record and tell me if it's working. I'm with the NHL in the thought process is correct. You want to emphasize and reward regulation wins. So go to the 3-2-1 point system because that's exactly what that does.
Or no point for a shootout win.
As time goes on, the boomer,
like no second point.
Oh, I thought you meant no points at all. Like, that doesn't.
No points at all. Whatever. Go home.
This is novelty now. Try the dumbest move you have in your.
Oh, we might be onto something.
But no, I get what they're trying to do. But the boomer in me saying, screw it. 2 points for a win, 0 points for a loss. I don't care how it happens.
Josh Shabadoo, brand new name level supporter. Welcome and thank you for an incredible name. I feel like Evan right now trying to pronounce Werenski.
That's a Simpsons reference, my guy.
Is it?
Yeah.
Which one?
No, Joey Jojo.
Oh, I'm an idiot.
You don't remember Barney?
Oh, we do so many Simpsons references. That's disgraceful.
Jojo Shabadoo. That is the worst name I've ever heard. Runs off. No, Joey Jojo. That's a classic scene.
So your brain is literally just hockey prospects and Simpsons quotes, eh?
Considering I haven't actually watched a new Simpsons episode since 2002, that's truly an accomplishment.
Yeah, you stopped at a good time. Hey guys, I've been listening for years and I finally got around to becoming a member. I wish it came at a better time, but what can you do? We are grateful, nevertheless, and I'm so sorry for missing the reference. Does momentum generally carry over after a season like this? or does it go game to game? I'm sure the guys will remember this, but can we bank on the team coming out with a vengeance next October? Thanks for all your work, guys. Your show has gotten me through a lot, and I can't express how grateful I am for this show.
As a team, no. Individual players, yes. Like what Lucas Raymond did here, he will not forget that in the offseason, and he will walk into the room next year like he owns the place. He's going to walk on the ice against any team knowing I can light you guys up, and that kind of confidence translates.
Prashanth sent me the walk-in photo of Lucas Raymond, and he's like, Ryan, what watch is Lucas Raymond wearing? Because I have the unfortunate hobby of being really into watches, and my joke was, it's the stupidest hobby to have because you're either spending way too much money on something that tells time mechanically worse than like a quartz watch that costs $3 from the dollar store, or you're looking at stuff that you'll never own. There's no in between. But he was wearing the Rolex GMT Master 2, the Batman, the blue black split bezel, and all I can think was, well, he's wearing that now. What's he gonna be? What's he gonna be decked out? He's gonna be wearing an AP next season. He's gonna Richard Mille, like he's gonna get paid.
None of those words made sense to me, but I appreciate the joke you were getting at.
And your bank account is all the better for you not understanding that. Again, a very dumb hobby. I have one nice watch, and that's all I can financially justify. I wear my Apple Watch most of the time. I mean, well, they're never sponsoring us. I can say Apple Watch. You imagine this show is sponsored by Apple? That'd be so stupid.
I'd have to get a new phone, that's for sure.
Apple, Android, fight it out. Okay. We have so many comments. We're going to jump into overtime bonus episode. But before that, I want to read out one more that made me laugh a lot. Benji says, I'm proposing your just win catchphrase be turned into just win in regulation. Would have been nice. It doesn't roll off the tongue as easily.
It can be just win asterisk and then in regulation underneath.
Just win asterisk. Please do it quickly.
Just win in 60. That's better, right?
I think so.
It's like remember the soccer brand Total 90?
No.
Yeah, why would I ask you to that? That's like stupid.
You could not find two people further away from soccer than us.
Yeah, I should have remembered. Anyhow, folks, our first episode of the Detroit Red Wings offseason is wrapping up, but our offseason content is just starting. Thank you all so much for tuning in. If you're a new listener, welcome to the show. Solidarity. And if you're a listener of old, solidarity. Thank you to Labatt Blue Light for sponsoring this episode of the Wind Wheel Podcast. And thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. We can't have done this season or the upcoming off season without you. Our name level supporters on Patreon are obviously, the reason why all of this happens. Oh, before that, if you want to support and you can't do it on Patreon, leave a rating wherever you get the show. Spotify, Apple Podcasts. If you're on YouTube, give the thumbs up and subscribe. It really does make a difference. And tell a friend about the show. But to our name level supporters on Patreon, Arjun Shankar, Yves Bartels on behalf of Sarah Grand Foundation, Aikfer, Samuel Soderholm, Icon, Victor Zetterberg, Brad's Lord and Savior Bradley Cleveland, Glenn Brabham, Croner's Left Knee, Ashley Van Conant, Keenan O'Donohue, Yanni Burgers, Meals on Wheels, Matthew M. Rice, the most important game in the last 8 years so far, Admiral Matt S. at the Cheesebag Navy, Avery's Sloppy Seconds, hell of a callback, oh my god, Carl Brutanen Analuski, Carl Provy, Citizen High Five, Clip Clop Nene, Connor Scovey, Craig Kibble, Denny's Gamer Girl, Derek Enstam, Cider, Dickens, formerly Marlon Winchester, DJ Denton, God Creatives, Give Blood, Fight Probert, Have You Ever Drank Bailey's from a Shoe, Hockeytown Love, Hockeytown Matt, Hassam Al-Qassem, Jay Gollum, Jacob Turner, Joel Miranda, Jonathan Miller, Jonathan Tortorella, Kaylin Wood, Marcus, Matt Keeler, Matt McKay, Michael Edlund, R.A., Ryan, 50, Hannah Hannah, Scott Martin, Skeletorb, Scree and Lube, That's What I Appreciates About You, Wallman's Elite Dancing D, Iserplan Stan, General Andy Bohan of the Cheesebag Army, Sam Bankson, A.B., Adam Rose, Axel Sandy Pelika, Bellingham Acid Balls, Brad Simmons, Brian Vasha, Chuck Buffchest, the Tarpless Goon, Commander Ben Barron of the Cheesebag Space Force, Connor Leighton, Corey Prida, Darren Fick, Derek James, Frank Stanley, Gene Sullivan, Griffey Boy, James Pridemore, Johnny Page, Jeremiah Dobo, J.M. Rhapsody, Joey Joe, Josh Shabadoo, Yogan Rafferty Fan Club, John Evans, Derogatory, John Ingalls, Josh Yelton, Kevin McCracken, Known Petrie Truther, the Mex-Canadian, Quaz, Les Grossman's Ungodly Firestorm, Linda Hull, Maximilian, Michigan Boy Navs Country, Naruto's Punchable Face, Not Mad, Just Disappointed Wings Fan, Ophelia, Red Wing Tar Heel, Reed, Salt Lake, Sugar Girly, brand new name level supporter, Steven, the Hodag, the Hat 123, Tom, Iserplan Respecter, Wings Fan in St. Louis, Scott, and your second favorite patron. Thanks for an amazing regular season, folks. Time for the real content to start. No, I'm just kidding. That was all content, but off-season's going to be good.
Thanks for tuning in to the Winged Wheel Podcast. Be sure to check out wingedwheelpodcast.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll also find links to other ways to support the show, such as Patreon, official podcast apparel, and more. And don't forget to follow the show on Twitter at Winged Wheel Pod. And of course, the hosts at Brad Crisco, at Ryan Hanna WWP, and at Hockeytown Evan.